I want to ask you about something that Shostakovich said. He said, real music is always revolutionary, for it cements the ranks of the people. It arouses them and leads them onward. Do you agree with Shostakovich, whose sonata in D minor you're performing on this tour? And if so, do you see yourselves as revolutionaries, arousing audiences and leading them forward?
I think it's a fantastic quote from a composer I've always really, really admired. I think as performers, it's a wonderfully powerful position to be in, where we have spent lots of time thinking about the music that we're playing and the emotions, hopefully, and the stories and the things that we can convey, and to have an audience of people in the room and to be able to share these thoughts and feelings with them, and hopefully inspire them or move them to feel a certain way or to think about a certain thing, is or to give them, provide them with an escape from what's going on outside in their lives, for this sort of focused 2 hours, for example, I think is a very powerful position and something that I really, really enjoy.
Isata, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that pretty much sums up what I would say.
All right, great. So when you're putting a recital tour together, what are your priorities in terms of how you program that tour?
Well, it usually is based on pieces that we love at that time, that we feel inspired to learn, and then also pieces that we think would be great for audiences to hear. I mean, many of the pieces in this program are often not played, and the Bridge in Britain in particular are not played much outside of the UK, and we think they're wonderful pieces. We feel very inspired to learn them and play them, and so yeah, that was the perfect combination of reasons to bring them.
When you do a tour like this, does this serve as preparation for ultimate recording of these pieces?
Not officially, of course. I mean, this repertoire is repertoire that we love, and hopefully one day would want to record in different capacities. But normally, its recording comes from pieces of repertoire that we've performed a lot, and get to a point where we feel it would be amazing to record them. So it's usually that way around. To be honest.
Now, I saw an interview that you did in a video, and you said that when you record a piece, it's a portrait of how you play it now, how you both play it now. And you go on to talk about how that perspective might change in 5, 10, or 20 years. But I'm wondering, how much does your perspective change over the course of a tour, between when you first start performing it and when you give your last performance as part of that recital tour?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. I think what does change is, I don't know if we have a massive perspective shift on the pieces in the space of a tour, but it's kind of like, I think they become more spontaneous. I think you get more and more into
the confidence.
It's the confidence, yeah.
If the first ones go well.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's kind of performing it night after night. It becomes more second nature as time goes on, and then we start doing different things. We'll play a bar differently. We'll challenge each other. On
we probably shouldn't say this because we're playing in California at the start of the.
Yes,
but we'll be ready by then, I'm sure. But it does develop over time.
Well, you're fastidious in your practice regimen, so I don't think anybody's really concerned about you not playing it well in California. Was your relationship with these particular compositions evolve the more you play it? And if so, historically, how do you find your relationships with the material you've chosen to perform change over the course of even a small tour like this?
It's, I suppose, I find the most exciting and the most enjoyable thing about what we do is we get to spend time investigating music, often that has so many layers and so much to investigate in, and so little time in our short lives. And so I think it's a constant journey and a constant development. And often the perspective of a piece can change often based on looking deeper and further into it. And sometimes stepping back and looking at it, from further away also can change perspective. So a tour is a very intense period with an intense relationship with a piece of music. And I find that to be very, very special.
Have either of you ever found it yourselves in a situation where you're like halfway through a tour or 2/3 of the way or even near the end and go, oh my God, I hope I never have to play that again? I mean, has a relationship ever soured with a piece of music?
Not really. I think I've only had that if I play a piece for more than a year, then I might feel like, oh, I need a break from it. But it's not like I don't like the piece anymore. It's more just, oh, I've been playing this piece for a year. Now it's time for something new. But yeah, I don't know if I've ever started disliking a piece that I once liked, and definitely not over the course of a tour.
What I find interesting about your careers is you're not choosing the war horses. You know, it's where you don't have to, play those opening chords in the Tchaikovsky piano concerto, and no, everybody doesn't expect you to play the Bach cello suites, for instance. You make interesting choices. So, when it came time to choosing this program, how far in advance did you make the choices for this repertoire?
I think probably a
year ago,
year ago,
yeah,
maybe.
So 2 years before, yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. But it's often just based on repertoire that we feel excited about at that time and excited to play in a year's time.
The reason I ask is because the Frank Bridge Sonata was written at a time when he was very concerned about what was going on in the world as it related to war, because that was, written around the time of the First World War. There's no way either of you could have known what was going to be going on in the world, but to find yourselves with Frank Bridge concerned about war, Shostakovich particularly concerned about the way the Russian government, was involved in the world. Do you think that now, given everything that's going on in Ukraine, that this music allows you to also make perhaps some commentary on what's going on now beyond what your original intention was with these pieces?
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course, Frank Bridge wrote this music in relation to what he was thinking and feeling at that time, but I don't think he wrote it solely for that time. But also, I think as humans, of course, we've gone through many different times and lots of events, but I don't know, when I look back at history, we haven't changed so much in the way that we relate to each other, and so I think music written 100 years ago is still at the core very, very relevant now, and probably will always be in some way. So I think I find playing Frank Bridge Sonata particularly very, very powerful at this time. Of course, it wasn't written in relation to anything that's going on at this moment, but it doesn't mean that it can't move us to think about that.
And that's the interesting thing, I think. I should tell you, I'm a lapsed piano performance major, severely lapsed, I should say. It's probably but I do find it interesting that composers have ideas that they're trying to express musically, and some make them more clear than others do. And I'm wondering what you think your roles are as musicians in getting not just the music across, but what the composer was thinking or was inspired by as he or she was writing that music across to an audience.
Yeah, I think I always find it interesting. I think there's two sides to it, because often when I hear a piece of music, I'm just moved by the music itself, and then I usually make up my own story, or I have my own feeling about it and relate it to my own life. And then later on, often I look at the context and what the composer was feeling and why they were inspired to write it. And I think that often adds a whole new dimension to the piece, and you can really see in more detail what they were trying to say. But I still think that I have a feeling about the piece before knowing all of that. I think the music also speaks for itself.
You guys have had tremendous success come your way at a young age, and I've seen a lot of young musicians come through the LA Philharmonic who get amazing audience response. I remember recently seeing a certain musician play the Tchaikovsky violin concerto who got, a standing ovation after the first movement. And I think, which I think is a little crazy. I'm just wondering how you deal with that kind of attention from an audience and not let it impact who you are as people and who you are as musicians. And perhaps maybe what advice you might give people to maintain the level of humility that the two of you seem to possess in spades.
I think an audience reaction is one of those things that it's very much for the concert and it's for the stage. So for example, when you give the concert and the audience reacts really well, it's a wonderful feeling because it's part of the whole live concert experience, and it kind of spurs you on and gives you energy to play even better on stage, I feel. So I think, but beyond that, when you come off stage, I think we then think differently. You know, you can feel as wonderful as you want on stage, but then you don't come off stage thinking that you're so amazing because the audience stood up, because you also still have your internal compass of how you feel about your playing, and you know, the growing you have to do. And I think if you always keep that with you, it also helps that we both have teachers and people that we play to who, you know, we go to our lessons and they say, oh, you need to do this,
they're not going to stand
that.
up.
They're not going to stand up after the first evening. And so I think, you know, your life on stage and your day-to-day life are very different. And, you know, yeah, that keeps you grounded.
You know, my concern when I see somebody that young get that kind of attention is maybe lapsing into some crowd-pleasing aspects of performance that have less to do with the music and more about trying to feed that beast of getting that same response every time.
Yeah, I suppose it might be tricky for some people to deal with. I think certainly having people around you who you trust and who are, you know, have been supportive for a long time, I think is very valuable if possible. And
then also, yeah, not always choosing repertoire that's really popular, like having a mixture of both, I think also helps.
Just interesting.
Yeah, this is interesting.
I did have a musician tell me that if you don't get applause at the end of the first movement of the Tchaikovsky violin concerto, you've done something wrong.
it's quite an end.
I think the other thing that we find, you know, doing this tour of America, and we also play in Europe and we play in different places in the world, is that audiences react differently wherever you go. And sometimes you feel like you played better here or better there, but the audience reacted really well in a concert where you didn't even feel like you played that well. So it really depends on the vibe of the city as well.
Right. You both have said previously that you grew up without seeing people who look like you on the classical music concert stage. What responsibility do you feel knowing that you are now playing the role for others that you were unable to get for yourselves?
Yes, less. I mean, I suppose it is a responsibility in some senses, but it's more something that we are very grateful to be and enjoy and really embrace. It's the most amazing feeling performing a concert, and then a young child comes up to you and says that they've begun learning the cello or want to begin learning the cello because they've seen you perform. I think that's, for me, what often motivates me the most to continue to do what I do. So, it's a responsibility in a sense, and something that we take seriously, but also something that we just are very grateful for as well.
There are a lot of organizations that are starting to include work by Black composers. If you look at the season announcements of most major orchestras, you'll find Florence Price and Joseph Ballone and George Walker and others being added to the repertoire. How much do you think this is going to be a permanent part of programming amongst symphonies and orchestras around the world, or do you think that this is perhaps a knee-jerk reaction, that they feel this is an easy first step or an easy thing for us to do now?
I think putting it on the program is a start, but actually rehearsing it and investing in really performing it well, I think is actually way more important. So I hope that the organizations or the orchestras also really take the time to investigate the music, because of course a lot of the music is very new to them. So it will take an extra bit of time and investment as well. So I think that's, for me, the next important thing after putting it in the program.
How important do you think it is for organizations to not just book people of color as performers, but actually put people of color in the front offices?
I think it would certainly have a positive impact. I mean, I don't know so much about the behind the scenes or the backstage of organizations, because we're often the ones on stage. So I don't know.
But I think it would definitely be a good thing. I think it could only be a good thing.
I think it would also be a good thing if audiences didn't think it was a big deal to see a woman conducting an orchestra. It seems like it's still in that novelty phase. And I know that when both of you are coming back to Los Angeles, you've got the Carla Schumann, you're performing, Haydn, if I remember correctly, and both performances are conducted by women. And I'm wondering, at what point do you think we will move past the idea that a woman conductor is a novelty?
I mean, it's hard to say exactly at what point, but that's the goal of any kind of movement, is, I guess, to essentially make itself redundant. So, you want to normalize it and you want it to become not a big deal. And it's, I don't know what kind of time frame we're looking at, but I definitely see a shift. I don't know. I'm already at the point where if I see a female conductor on stage, I don't think much of it. And it's usually when people say, oh my gosh, it's a female conductor, I'm like, oh yeah. So I think some people already see it as part of the norm, but there's still many more people who, I think it just needs to keep happening, basically.
If you were to look forward, 25 years from now, where would you like to be, each of you, with your careers, and what do you think might be most important for you to accomplish in that quarter century?
25 years.
It's a long time. I haven't even been alive 25 years, so I don't know what that feels like. But I would say I hope to be performing. I hope to have a fairly big list of works that I have been written for me and that I have premiered. That's something that I'm very keen on doing, and I hope to be able to look back and say that I've explored, to the best of my ability, everything that was possible to explore in terms of styles of music, people to collaborate with, the repertoire that I know, explored it to the maximum. I think that would be what I would be happy about if I look back and saw that.
Yeah, I would like to have lots of recordings of kind of repertoire that I love and dream to learn, and also new and interesting repertoire, and to have played all over the world, to have collaborated with many different people. I love doing chamber music, and so I think the same as Sheku. I mean, you really want to look back and feel like you've had a fulfilling career where you've kind of done many of the things that you want to do.
Well, I don't know who your personal inspirations are, but if you had a Martha Argerich career and you had a Yo-Yo Ma career, I would assume that you would be happy with that.
I mean, I look up to both of those musicians, so for sure.
I want to finish by asking you about something that Clara Schumann said about composing, but I feel it could be appropriate for the two of you. She said, "There is nothing that surpasses the joy of creation, if only because through it, one wins hours of self-forgetfulness where one lives in a world of sound." And I'm wondering if you agree with her and think that that may be a way of describing not just the life you have now as performing artist, but the life you'd like to continue having.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think particularly with something like composing, and we both enjoy composing sometimes as a hobby. I mean, or even when you're playing, rehearsing chamber music or really into something, you really do lose yourself for a few hours. And I've also felt that watching a concert as well. And so I think that is the wonderful thing about music, and that's kind of the experience you want to give audiences as well when you're giving a concert, that they just lose themselves for a bit. And so, I think that's definitely ideal.
Sheku, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think music is a beautiful thing because of that, and I can remember many moments where I've been watching a concert and it has touched something inside of me that was very, very unique and very special.
Terrific. Well, thank you both very much. I look forward to seeing the recital here in Los Angeles, and hopefully I'll see both of your other visits to Los Angeles, with the various works that you'll be doing.
Thank you so much. Have a good day and see you soon.
See you.